Billions of dollars in U.S. aid never reaches Pakistani army. The United States has long suspected that much of the billions of dollars it has sent Pakistan to battle militants has been diverted to the domestic economy and other causes, such as fighting India. And now, the scope and longevity of the misuse is becoming clear. Between 2002 and 2008, while Al-Qaida regrouped, only $500 million of the $6.6 billion in American aid actually made it to the Pakistani military, two Army generals say. The account of the generals, who asked to remain anonymous because military rules forbid them from speaking publicly, was backed up by other retired and active generals, former bureaucrats and government ministers. At the time of the siphoning, Pervez Musharraf, a Washington ally, served as both chief of staff and president, making it much easier to divert money intended for the military to bolster his sagging image at home through economic subsidies. The army itself got very little, said a retired general who was Pakistan's ambassador to the U.S. under Musharraf. It went to things like subsidies, which is why everything looked hunky-dory. The military was financing the war on terror out of its own budget. Generals and ministers say the diversion of the money hurt the military in very real ways. Helicopters critical to the battle in rugged border regions were not available. At one point in 2007, more than 200 Pakistani soldiers were trapped by insurgents in the tribal regions without a helicopter lift to rescue them. The limited night vision equipment given to the army was taken away every 3 months for inventory and then returned 3 weeks later. Equipment was broken and training was lacking. More money for Pakistan. Details on misuse of American aid come as Washington again promises Pakistan even more money. Legislation to triple general aid to Pakistan cleared Congress last week. The legislation also authorizes, theoretically, such sums as are necessary for military assistance to Pakistan upon several supposed conditions. The conditions include certification that Pakistan is cooperating in stopping the proliferation of nuclear weapons, although Pakistan already has nuclear weapons, and that Pakistan is making a sustained commitment to combating terrorist groups, and that Pakistan security forces are not subverting the country's political or judicial processes. The U.S. is also insisting on more accountability for reimbursing money spent. For example, Pakistan is still waiting for $1.7 billion for which it has billed the United States under a coalition support fund to reimburse allies for money spent on the war on terror. But the U.S. still can't follow what happens to the money it doles out. Again, but the United States still can't follow what happens to the money it doles out. What good is that? More wasted money. We don't have a mechanism for tracking the money after we have given it to them, Pentagon spokesman Lieutenant Colonel Mark Wright said in a telephone interview. Musharraf's spokesman flatly denied that his former boss had shortchanged the army, but he did not address the specific charges. Yes, more wasted billions. The army got peanuts. The misuse of funding helps to explain how Al-Qaida dismantled in Afghanistan in 2001, was able to regroup, grow, and take on the weak Pakistani army. Even today, the army complains of inadequate equipment to battle Taliban entrenched in tribal regions. For its part, Washington did not ask many questions of a leader, Musharraf, whom it considered an ally, according to a U.S. Government Accountability Office report released last year. Pakistan has received more money from the fund than any other nation. By 2008, the United States had provided Pakistan with $8.6 billion in military money and more than $12 billion in all. The army was sending in the bills, said one general who asked not to be identified, because it is against military rules to speak publicly. The army was taking from its coffers to pay for the war effort. The access roads construction, the fuel, everything. This is the reality. The army got peanuts. Some of the money from the U.S. even went to buying weapons from the United States better suited to fighting India than in the border regions of Afghanistan. Armor-piercing TOW missiles, sophisticated surveillance equipment, air-to-air missiles, maritime patrol aircraft, anti-ship missiles, and F-16 fighter aircraft. What business does the United States have funding these weapons systems to fight India? That's madness. Absolutely. Pakistan insisted and America agreed. Pakistan said, "We also have a threat from other sources," referring to India. We have to strengthen our overall capacity. So, the money was used to buy and support capability against India. The army also suffered from mismanagement. Pakistan asked for Cobra helicopters because it knows how to maintain them. But the helicopters were very old, and to make them battle ready, the Pentagon sent them to a company that had no experience with Cobras and took 2 years. As a result, in 2007, Pakistan had only one working helicopter, a debilitating handicap in the battle against insurgents who hide, train, and attack from the hulking mountains that run like a seam along the Afghan-Pakistani border. The army was also frustrated about not getting more money. The U.S. gave nothing to offset the cost of Pakistan's dead and wounded in the war on terror. An estimated 1,800 Pakistani soldiers have been killed since 2003, and 4,800 more wounded, most of them seriously. Hospital and rehabilitation costs for the wounded have come to more than $25 million. Pakistan's military also gives land to the widows of the dead, educates their children, and provides health care. These costs do not appear anywhere. There is no U.S. compensation for the casualties, assistance with aid to the grieving families. Very few U.S. controls. Even while money was being siphoned off for other purposes on Pakistan's end, the U.S. imposed very little control over or even had specific knowledge of what went where, according to reports by the U.S. Government Accountability Office. The reports covered 2002 through 2008. Reports found that the Pentagon often ignored its own oversight rules, didn't get adequate documents, and doled out money without asking for an explanation. For more than a year, the Pentagon paid Pakistan's Navy $19,000 a month per vehicle just for repair costs on a fleet of fewer than 20 vehicles. Monthly food bills doubled for no apparent reason. And for a year, the Pentagon paid the bills without checking, according to the report. This is not right. U.S. money unwisely spent, wasted in some kind of way. There's something wrong with this picture. And everything is connected. And there's much more going on here. And these are more signs of the end times transition days. The transition is ongoing, day by day, all around the world.